All right, hello everyone, and welcome. It is Tuesday, February 26th, and we are starting out week 4 here. We have made it through the implementation process. At this point, you should have your music and sound effects working in the 2D platformer and Angry Bots projects. I've had a few people contact me with some technical issues, but if you're still encountering anything, if something in Wise wasn't working over the weekend, please let me know. Um, we want to make sure that the creativity and the success of your project is not based on any sort of or technical issues or kind of um, slowed down by any sort of technical issues. So reach out to me if you are having any issues in this last week with any one of your projects, the music, the sound design, the implementation in Wise. But I'm going to guess that most people were successful in getting everything, and I've seen the submissions overall, and I'll be going through the 2D platformer Wise setup, the Angry Bots Wise setup, and we also have a couple of chiptune submissions here. So our peer review for today will be taking a listen to, how many do we have here? Looks like a good number overall. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different submissions here. And overall, in week 4, the focus is being able to take everything that you've learned and that everything that you've worked on and put it in a format that you can apply beyond the class. So hopefully the class piques your interest in this side of the industry, at least exposes you to this side of work. There's a percentage of people that come through the class and say, this is awesome, this is exactly what I'm looking for, this is exactly the type of projects that I want to be involved with. There are a whole bunch of other people that go through the class and are introduced to this type of work, and there we go. Are introduced to this type of work and say, okay, well, not necessarily what I'm directly interested in, but if these types of projects make themselves available, or if I kind of find these types of projects, then I know what's entailed and I might explore that further. And then there's often a small component of people that go through the class and are like, nope, I never want to touch this type of work again. I now know that. I've worked in the composition of the music, the sound design, the implementation in Wise, and they just didn't like the type of project and the type of approach overall, and that's really just as viable, just to be introduced to this type of work and see what it entails, to see if, well, again, hopefully it piques your interest overall. So we will be this week focused on taking the projects as they are with your music and sound effects working in them and putting them into a format that you can then show off and distribute out to clients and prospective employers. With Wise implementing, using Wise to implement your music and sound effects, you now have two fully working Mac applications with your custom music and sound effects in them. And you have the ability to tweak them and change out the sounds and revise them. But ultimately, you can take those games are yours. You can put them on Dropbox and share a link out to folks. You can host them on your website, send links off to, again, employers, clients, and there are some restrictions, or not restrictions, like roadblocks in them actually downloading and enjoying the application. Mainly because it is a Mac application, and the person you're sending it to has to have a Mac in order to run it. They also have to have a Mac that's powerful enough to run the application. And a lot of folks at different companies and just smart folks in general don't like to download random applications off of the internet and run it on their computer. So there are some kind of quality of life, ease of use issues with distributing the applications. You're free to do that. but often creating a video is going to be a whole lot easier. Most people will have no issue with clicking on a link and watching a YouTube video, checking out the work that you've done, and you can then give them a guided tour about or through the game, playing the game, showing off the work that you've done. So week 4 will have you creating video captures of the music and sound effects working in the game. And then there is a 10-question quiz on FSO. It's not a quiz that you study for because you have all of the answers. It's all about the projects. It's about how they are built, how they, what successes and things that didn't work so well in the process. It's kind of like a summary or a post-mortem of how it went in implementing and getting your music set up in the game. So that's generally the focus overall. That's where week 4 is headed. So we want to make sure that you get everything wrapped up and taken care of before the end of the month so you can go into final project smoothly. And we want to make sure that any sort of issues or troubleshooting that you may need to do with any of the projects is wrapped up by the end of this week. So again, reach out if you have any of those issues. All right, so as mentioned, we have quite a few chiptune compositions to take a listen to, which is excellent. We're going to see quite a few variations here. And overall, most people will definitely like this approach to the music. A lot of folks really enjoy this type of composition. Some folks love it because of the nostalgia element to it, the types of sounds that are involved, the type of production that's required, the fact that the restrictions are around what was happening in the original Nintendo system. So the main part of this composition is operating within these restrictions. Number one, you are required to use the instruments that are provided in the original Logic session. There are a couple of EXS-24 sound banks that contained both or contained samples from the original Nintendo system and the Famicom system, which was the Japanese release of the Nintendo or the NES. So very recognizable types of sounds, very simple sounds, almost kind of boring sounds because they're simple waveforms without square waves and sine waves and triangle waves without a lot of the production. So some folks have a challenge with this type of production because you take away all of their synths, all of their tools, all of the production, all of the effects processing that they might use otherwise, and are given very, very basic tones. Ultimately, what ends up happening quite a bit is the compositions are stronger because it focuses you very quickly on the melody and harmonic and rhythmic progression through the composition. You're left with simple sounds. You can't hide behind really amazing presets, so it really focuses you down typically in a strong harmonic and melodic development. So, which is always excellent. This type of production leans or kind of leans into the idea of faster, more staccato, higher tempo composition because the sounds are so simple, even boring, that if you sit on one too long, that there's not much going on. It's very steady tone. Every once in a while you get sort of a tremolo feel to it as the pitch wobbles around a little bit. But overall, the most of the sounds are pretty static all the way through. So you have a limit of 4 simultaneous voices. Those voices typically are drums, bass, harmony, melody, where the melody is going to be probably the focus of the composition overall. The harmony that supports the melody. Sometimes you can do drums, bass, melody, counter melody. You are not limited to just 4 tracks or 4 sounds. You're just limited to 4 sounds at any one time. So a lot of the interesting production or sound design of some of these original Nintendo tracks was the fact that they were switching between different sounds very, very quickly. So you can have as many tracks as you want, you just only can use 4 simultaneously. Some of the restrictions we don't follow are drums count as one channel. So you can have kick, snares, hi-hats playing together and in different combinations. And that would count as one drum channel. And polyphony. We allow, in the original Nintendo system, each channel was mono, but for our purposes, we can allow chords and progression that way. So not exactly the restrictions, and certainly it gets deeper than all of that, but and there's also were effects processing. You got EQs and delays and reverbs. You could fake a lot of that stuff on the original Nintendo, but we have the modern variation of that to work with. So the other elements, it didn't have to loop, was not interactive. It wasn't like separated into multiple cues that switch around according to what's going on in the game. At least this one more of a demo of what would be in a particular game. The other thing to think of is as we are listening to each one, think about what type of game it might be towards. I'll come up with an example, post them up in the chat if you come up with it. If you feel it represents a particular a specific game or a particular like type of game overall, here in the chat. Multiple tracks was my downfall. I just did not get to it. Yeah, that's where more of the detail comes in, because you're kind of juggling and bouncing between all of these different tracks as they play. What else? I think that's most of the stuff I wanted to talk about. I'm not going to load them up into Logic. I'm just going to do it like this. I'll just go one at a time. I have the screenshot here. I'll load that up and try to, I gotta make it fit on the screen first, or each time. I'm trying to make them fit depending on how the screenshot lays out. Let's see. How do I zoom in here? Oops, no, that's it. Let's try doing it on the screenshot, not in the screenshot of Logic. Okay, that should give us something to look at. And then we'll load this up and turn it down here. Oops. See how this works. All right. Very cool. All right, I like the overall pacing of it. I like the energy in the drums. I like the changes in the rhythm. It starts out at a good pace overall, and then kind of goes to this halftime feel, and it kicks back in and goes back and forth. I would think the main thing to point out would be the fact that this section, we got 1, 2, 3 as repetitions of the same 16-bar phrase. So I would keep a similar idea, but create some changes in each one, whether it's an individual or all of these changing drums. Just have the lead change up a bit. Probably keep the pattern. I'm going to say this tap is probably part of the drums here, because you have a nice change here, a nice change here. It gets a little repetitive through this one, but I like the changes. Right, we got section A, section A, section A. So I like the changes in the progression. The fact that everything kind of follows right along with that. But yeah, I would change up section A through each time, especially on the last one, and maybe create an ending overall, but it creates a good energy all the way through. I almost picture this type of game, something with a timer, something where I have to do like solve a puzzle quickly, or do some sort of activity against the clock before time runs out, because of that sort of pacing of the music. All right, nice work there. Let's go ahead and try the next one. Get the screenshot here. Try this. Good kind of texture to it overall. Say maybe it takes a little too long to come in. It almost feels like a song structure, where this would be more of a demo for a game. So I would typically avoid a song structure in this type of composition, because it should reflect more of the progression of the story or the action. You should try to follow a particular arc of whatever the intended project would be. Just kind of try to draw the picture or tell the story of what is kind of progressing through the music, as opposed to sometimes what we'll hear in the compositions is something that feels like intro, verse 1, verse 2, chorus, bridge, outro. I mean, intros and outros will typically work because this is a linear piece of music, but having those sorts of progressions, like also you want to put often the most interesting stuff up front. Don't have the listener wait around too long for the really strong idea to hit. Typically with something like this, again, it's the faster rhythm. Previous composition, we were directly into that pace and kept it all the way through. So, I mean, you could probably do just fine with one pass of this, and then just drop it into the drums right here instead of having it go through twice. Then the lead is a little bit loud overall. Obviously, this mixing this has its own set of challenges because all the tones are so pure, especially when it goes to a higher octave like that. But what you're doing with some of the vibrato stuff and the panning right there. I don't know if you can hear that in the broadcast. I think Go-To Training is mono when it broadcasts, but there's some good kind of panning. You can probably see the automation here. So what you're doing with the progression and the lead, I think works out well. I think the delay and the movement in all the different elements sounds good. Trying to come up with thinking like a Undertale kind of game, some sort of RPG. Maybe this with all the reverb, it almost sounds like a cave that you're kind of exploring around. This is definitely not action. Nothing dangerous is happening right now, but or maybe some story is being told. But excellent. I think that works. Very good. Let's close that out. Try the next one. Let's bring this in first. See if we can make it fit. And here. Cool. All right. Again, great energy all the way through. It really works towards kind of fast-paced feeling all the way through. I'm definitely feeling kind of a Spy Hunter theme. I don't know if you remember Spy Hunter, where you were this car driving around. Everybody's chasing you, and you can lay bombs and oil slicks and all this stuff. So definitely for like a racing game or a flying game or something like that, where I'm moving at a fast pace. Really, the only thing that I might point out, I definitely like all the chromaticism in there, and the little rises at the end of each phrase. Here, boom, bum, 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 bum. The only thing would be maybe changing off of whatever this bass chord that you're playing here, because the bass line's sitting right where was it the previous example? One of them we had kind of an arpeggiator that was following a 1-4-5 progression, but just change almost like a 12-bar blues phrase. Not that you need to do it here in the beginning, because I think there's enough change and development. You can do some really cool stuff with each repetition. But maybe like halfway through here, or maybe towards the end. And I think it's mainly just where that bass sits. I mean, it's grooving right along enough that the repetition works. But yeah, maybe moving to another chord will help create more development all the way through. And the last thing I would say is just create an ending. Instead of just having it cut off, just kind of hold the last note there. But yeah, I think it fits some sort of action scene very nicely. You got a strong groove there that can be kind of developed in all sorts of different ways. All right. So let's close this one and close this one. And we will open up this one. Bring this here. And open this up. Oops. Uh-oh. Fit. Shrink. Oh, come on. Come on. There you go. Something that should work. All right. Let's give this one a try. Cool. All right, that worked well. I like all the strong changes in each one, or through each kind of repetition, kind of adding different layers in. Takes off here. Now, I do have to ask, you said multiple tracks for your downfall, just did not get it. But I do see a switching between the different tracks, unless you're just switching between different octaves. But I mean, you've got more than 4 things going on there simultaneously, so you are switching between the different layers. The change, is it change in the drums? Yeah, okay. So you got changes in the sound of the drums, a couple of new synth layers that pop in. Here in the chat, it feels like I could have done more with that. Oh, after hearing some of the examples. Yeah, there's just so much complexity. Yeah, I mean, that's where a lot of the complexity comes from, is being able to have all of those tones and be able to switch between them. I'd say one of the main things is that when you get to this arpeggio, that 16th note phrase, and it's cool because it kind of switches between the different layers, between the different sounds, but I think the phrasing of it gets repetitive even as it switches. So maybe as it switches, you keep it on the 16th note, but the pattern of it changes, or the notes, order of the notes that it hits is different. Here it's good, goes up, kind of everything rises up to that last note and chord. So not much to complain about all the way through. Some solid changes. There's good development. I'm thinking either kind of a spaceship game, or I'm creeping around a spaceship. It does feel like action and battle. But that sort of minor tonality all the way through also gives it a maybe like the pyramid level or something like that, or the ancient tomb level. Those are, or even a Castlevania kind of vibe with that minor feel. So excellent work. All right, another good one. Let's see the changes happening through that one. Excellent examples so far. Let's see here. Good to there. All right, here we go. So we got the drums, we've got the melodic line, and like this, we got the boop boops, which totally describes this, boop 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 boop, all the way through. We got the pads. So I would say mostly would be watching out for the repetition. The drums stay pretty consistent in their pattern all the way through. The melody and the boo boops here kind of trade off a bit. And then the pads are pretty static all the way through. I mean, you have the phrase that is established and it repeats here, it doesn't exist here, and then it kind of repeats through here. This line, I think, while the melody should be the lead, I think these boops are actually a bit, well, I mean, just here, but overall in the mix, they're a bit louder, where this should be more of the focus. So I would bring these down a bit. And then I would change go farther in the development of the melody and change the progression and the rhythmic pattern at different times to kind of follow those changes in the melody. I would also say this does kind of lend itself to that song form where you have an intro Here where the melody hasn't come in, kind of the progression established, then the melody comes in. Layers built one at a time. Adds the pads, adds the melody, changes up, kind of trades off for the kind of harmonic layer, drops out the pads, brings them back, kind of repeats it all the way to the end. So very similar to a song form overall, and should try to tell the story of just kind of pick something overall, the hero reveal or the monster reveal, stealth, action, winning, losing, kind of even make it up with your intention for the game, and see if you can write a piece of music that is undeniably winning, losing, action, stealth, and have almost anybody who listens to it sort of be able to catch what idea you're trying to go for. Here in the chat, this one feels like one of those Mummy Mazes games. I think I could definitely hear that. Where the paths definitely do that, and the melody against it. I would say, yeah, you kind of creep around the catacombs or something, and the mummies are they're always some character would just go left and right in the level, and you just have to go around them and make sure you don't go across their path, or have to wait for them to go by, and there's like spiders and all that sort of stuff. So I could definitely see that for the music there. All right. Good stuff. Oops. All right. Shrink that down. So we can make all this fit. There we go. Like that. All right. Here we go with the next one. Whoa. I guess those are... All right, lots of dissonance there. Hold on, I'm going to double check on that one. Hold on just a moment here. Make sure that I put my hands on the right one. Well, that doesn't reflect. Is that what I see in that screenshot? Well, yeah, did. Main thing I'm looking for is drums overall. Hold on just a sec. Oh, those are short. All right, so needs progression, needs harmony, needs melody, needs drums. Watch out for the repetition in the phrasing. I mean, this could be more like the sound effect of the machine's gone crazy or something like that, where focuses more on dissonance and then the structure overall. So I'm going to need more, structure, melody, harmony, progression, those sorts of elements for this type of composition. Let's do, shrunk down there. Let's do this. All right, looks like there's a lot of things going on there. And do this. All right, let's give it a try. Cool. All right. So lots of moving parts in there. I would have to ask about the number of tracks. We've got lead 1, lead 2, harmony, bass. I guess if lead 1 and lead 2 are the same sound, if they're the same sound, they were just played at different octaves. And lead 1 and then we have harmony, bass. We'll count the drums as 1. I'm going to say that these would have to be, or else you got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the drums would come in as 5. So, and then when you got to these bells at the end, that would add a 6th layer. So, think I might call it beyond the number of overall tracks, which is why it has such a strong density to it. All right, so I might just shorten this up a little bit, just kind of almost kick in. You probably don't even need this. You could just kick in at this level of intensity and this level of density. I like that the bells are just there at very key moments. So here, right, lead, harmony, bass, these will come in very quickly. Where am I? About here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, most of the time I think I'm all right with the number of, just when it builds up to this last section here. I really like the effect of what happens at the very end. Little turnaround there that works. Strong change in the progression. Definitely feels like I beat the level at the end. Almost feels like a kind of a runner game where it's got fast pace, it's energy, there's a good energy to it, but it's not like, it's very major, it's not dangerous. I'm just like a running fast in a race, or what are those, like where you hold your finger on the screen long enough for the character to run, and then it let go off and jumps, and what is it, Geometry Racer or something like that, I don't know. But these types of games where it kind of has a good strong pace with the rhythm of the music, keeps the energy moving forward. Cool. Let's see if there's... Thought I heard a dissonant note. so excellent work there. Might have to clarify the number of channels through there, but everything fits the overall theme nicely. And one more here. Let's again make sure. Oops. Oh. Make this fit. I do that. Ooh. Something like this. There we go. And then here. Couple last hits there. All right. So I would say, again, watch the repetition. That would probably be the main element, is to create a bit more development overall. I like when it reaches this section here with this square wave 50% track. Where was that? Here. Here you have enough movement in the lead line that it creates enough change over the repetition of the chord progression. So you have the drums stay, again, pretty static. You have a fill that happens here at the end of each phrase or the start of each phrase. But the overall chord progression, bass line, stay pretty static. It does kind of change here. I wouldn't go down to just the kick drum. I wouldn't go down to just this melodic lead and the bass line. It does get very sparse through there. It almost sounds like the track is going to end, and it kind of comes back. Then it has just a couple of hits at the end. So I would create more kind of consistency. I would almost start out at this level of intensity, and then come down and then bring it back up in intensity, instead of building it up through here, what seems is like intro, verse 1, verse 2, and then the kind of the solo, and then kind of the outro here as it changes through each one of those sections. So compositionally it works. The melody works against the bass and the progression. So just either create this level of melody all the way through to kind of overshadow the progression, or create more changes in the progression. Trying to think. This might be exploring the countryside. where I'm just like those kind of games where you just be wandering around and then you'd bump into an enemy and then you'd have to fight for a little while and come back and you'd go wandering around some more. That kind of exploration overall. Here in the chat, yeah, I'm going to create a few more projects working with the 8-bit soundtracks, sound banks. It's very interesting. Yeah, yeah, you're free to use all of the sounds, certainly in other compositions, and yeah, I think this approach to the composition and really the restrictions get people down to, again, melody and harmony and this type of focus on the actual music of it versus the production, because the sounds are so simplistic overall. I think at least when I'm in class with students on campus, when most people sit down to compose something, they'll load up a synth and they'll go to a preset and they'll go boop, nope, that's not the right preset, and then they'll change the preset and then go meh, nope, that's not the right preset, and they'll go back and forth, new preset sound, new preset key, new preset key, and then until they find a sound, they're like, oh, that sounds cool, and then they will write a piece of music for that particular sound that they hear. Versus the other way around, I think the sounds don't matter as much, and it really gets you into, pulls away all of that production and gets you into melody, harmony, and rhythm very, very quickly, which allows for more time on development on all of that. And you can almost switch any sound out for what's going on in the melody and harmony, and it will work because the base composition is there. So nice work overall for everyone. We had a good series of submissions, good variations overall. I always find another way to take this project, another direction to go with it, is to split the composition up into what you have currently, the idea of these kind of simple chiptune sounds, square waves, triangle waves, sine waves, and focusing on the restrictions. So basically having the composition as you have it, and then somewhere, probably halfway through the composition, the music opens up with no restrictions. And full orchestration, you can use the full orchestra, you can use synths, you can use as many tracks as you want, without kind of just full modern production as it is now. So the idea is that the melody is the same, the core composition is the same, but if you had all the restrictions in the world, you could still make amazing music with very catchy melodies and progressions. But if there were no restrictions, then it could be fully realized in an orchestra or whatever series of synths or whatever style of production that you choose. Just to show you that it doesn't matter what the production is, it doesn't matter what the tools are. You are still capable of writing these very memorable kind of themes for whatever kind of project that it's necessary for. So other ideas, other ways to use it. Again, good examples to check out. In week 4 here, you will be taking your music and your sound effects and, well, you have them in the game, but you're going to put them into a format that you can show off. You'll be creating those video captures. Again, please reach out to me if you are having any sort of issues. We can troubleshoot them through the rest of the week and make sure that everything is wrapped up for the end of the month. I'm going to switch it over to the archive now to discuss the new assignments for week 4. Everything kind of lightens up overall. There's no brand new game composition because we don't have a week 5 for peer review and feedback. So it's about taking all of the work that you've done and putting it in this kind of final format and submitting it, and ultimately having, while the projects and the videos that you'll create and the music and everything is all well and good for the grades in the class, the real purpose, the real point of all of it is to have demos that you can then show off, add to portfolios, add to demo reels, and just have this sort of vehicle for showing off your music in games. So we'll meet again on Thursday. If you have any questions or you have anything that you want to check out before you submit it, stop by on Thursday. But other than that, we will wrap it up there, and I'll stick around for a few minutes after class for any questions. But other than that, I'll see you again on Thursday, and have a good rest of your day. So we have our submissions there. Like I said, the focus of this week is your final week is to take the information and the projects that you've worked on and put them in the best light to show them off beyond the class and beyond your time at Full Sail, and be able to show the work off that you've done and completed, hopefully to future employers and future clients and whatnot. So as you have been progressing through all of your classes, you certainly should be gathering together as much of your classwork and materials and projects that you've been working on and put it together into a strong demo reel to show that off. And that includes these game projects. They are well and good as grades and as projects for a class, but their real intention is to give you a vehicle to show off your music and to show off your work and be able to demonstrate that off out there as you get started in the industry. So we are going to talk about the best way of showing off your music that is intended to play back in the game is to actually have somebody play the game. The best way of demonstrating your music for a game is to actually demo that game. So you have the game projects, you have the game applications, and you can distribute those as you wish. They are yours. They are free for you, free for educational purposes, free for demo purposes. The only thing is you just you would indicate that you did all of the music and sound, but you don't claim that you created the game. But they are for you to put on a website, put it in Dropbox, and send it around to future clients or future employers, and to show off your work. However, there are some limitations, mostly like technical limitations, with demonstrating your game. The first one is it's a Mac game, and so whoever wants to play the game needs to have a Mac computer in order to play it. The games can be put in or made as PC games, but that takes a lot of extra understanding and programming to convert the projects. I mean, it is possible, but mostly you have a Mac application. And so somebody has to have a Mac, and maybe whoever you're sending this off to has a computer and they can check it out. They have to have a computer powerful enough to play the games. That isn't as much of an issue as it used to be, as people's computers have progressively gotten better over the years and have started with better computers. We really don't have much of an issue running these projects. So then you have another issue of very smart people on the internet won't probably just download some random application and run it on their computer. You would be very smart not to just download random zip files and open them up and play them on your computer. Now, of course, that's not the case with these applications, and they aren't. I mean, there's nothing wrong with them, but just a random link on a website, you're not going to get tons of people just saying, "Okay, sure, I'm just going to download this unknown application and run it." So you need to have some way of showing off your work. You need to have some way of people being able to see your music working in a game. You could just take like one of your main loop files and put it up on SoundCloud and say, "Hey, here's a loop that I wrote for a game," and I promise it works in the game. So the best way of showing off your music working in the game is actually having the game to show off. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a video capture of you playing the game with your music and sound effects working. So by this point in the month, you have composed the music for both of these projects, created all the sound effects. We had an opportunity for peer review, and you also got feedback for your submission. You have the opportunity to do any revisions or changes to that composition or those sound effects. Last week you used Wise and used an audio middleware tool to connect your music and your sound effects working in the game. You got it working in the game. You tested it out. You played the game and you listened to your sound effects and your music, and more than likely found some issues with it. I mean, I guess you could knock it out of the park first time every single time, but most of the time you get it in the game and there's yeah, I don't know, 75, 80% of it's all right, but there's another 20% there that I need to tweak and to change. So you go back to your sounds and you tweak your sounds a little bit. You go back to your music and you mix your files and you bounce everything out again. And you test it, put it back in the game, test it out. And that is a very constant kind of revision or iteration cycle where you compose something, you say, I think this is going to work. You put it in the game, go, man, that kind of works, but I need to do this. Then you go back and you fix it, you put it back in the game, you test it out, and you go around and around. So once you get everything set up in the game, then now you're ready to do this final video capture. It basically proves the process that you have created all the music and sound effects, put it in the game, tested it out, and have something to show for it. So you will be using QuickTime and a program called Loopback in order to capture the video on the screen or the game on the screen. All right, so let me talk about how you will set this up and how this will actually work. So actually I can just do this real quick. When you go on FSO, here's week 4. Here's your final game captures assignment. Notice that it is 0 weighted. That doesn't mean that you don't have to do it. It's just not turned in here. You are going to turn it down here in the final project delivery. So don't just ignore the assignment because it is 0 weighted. But it provides you with all the material. It says you will submit this YouTube link in a separate assignment on FSO. Final game capture. So you'll get a PDF here, and you'll get a PDF here. And the first one just gives you mostly just an overview and delivery instructions. Just kind of a real quick summary of how it all works and how to deliver everything here. But there's a separate PDF that goes slide by slide and goes into a lot more detail. So let me just take a look at this here. You will use QuickTime, which is already installed on your computer, and a program called Loopback in order to capture audio inside of your computer. Loopback is a free application. You can just go to the link here. Well, it's not a free application. It costs $99, but you don't need the $99 version. I don't know, unless you completely love the application and you want to support these people, but really you just need the free download for our purposes. The limitation with the free download is that it lasts for 15 minutes, and you only need to record for a minute or two. So if for some reason the 15 minutes runs out, then you just shut down the program and open it back up, and you got another 15 minutes. But after a while, it starts blasting white noise at you, so make sure if you hear that, that's what's going on there. So you just download the Loopback, and what it is it is a virtual audio cable application for your computer. Meaning, you are going to record the video using QuickTime. You've probably used QuickTime at some point. This is actually QuickTime down here for all my videos. QuickTime is just capture the video from your webcam, or actually in this instance, it's going to capture the actual screen. But QuickTime doesn't allow you to do audio from inside of your computer. Actually, here's a better view of it. This is what it looks like when you open up and do the screen recording. And when you hit this down arrow, it doesn't allow you to record from inside of your own computer because of all sorts of nefarious copyright reasons. They don't want you recording everything that's ever been played through your entire computer. But for our purposes, it's your music. You want to record it, so you need to have a way of actually doing that. That's where Loopback comes in. And when you download Loopback and you run it, it looks like this. Here. And it says, hey, click here to create a new virtual device. And when you create a new virtual device, it's actually creating like an audio interface inside of your computer. Just like you take a cable and you go a cable out of a guitar into an amp, or just a cable out of one thing into another. This takes a cable, a virtual cable, and goes out of your game into QuickTime. If I look at my audio MIDI setup now, it actually adds an extra interface to run everything through. And when you do that and you go back to QuickTime, oh my goodness, hello computer, there it goes. When you come back here and look in here, you should now have a loopback audio interface. Once you do all of that, the other thing you need to do is come in here and you need to tell it to actually what application do you want to record. And you want it to point to 2D Platformer or Angry Bots, whichever one you're recording. Right here. And when you do that, it shows up here. You will be able to, I don't want to do this right now, but you want to be able to listen through your speakers. You uncheck the mute audio sources so that you can hear everything. And then you go run the game, and you should be able to meter it. Once you play the game, you should see some meters here inside of the screen recording, and you know at that point that it's working. When you get this set up, you might hear it doubled up, like it might monitor back twice. Depends on how you have your audio set up, but it either can be this, it could be monitoring through QuickTime, which could be this fader. It could be this setting, monitor through audio through whatever your output is. So double check those just to make sure. The other thing is, if you hear it doubled, it doesn't actually capture doubled. So you can just hit record anyway. You'll monitor it doubled, and then you'll listen. The video will be fine. So just a couple of pointers there. So you'll install Loopback. You'll set up for the screen recording. Like I said, you'll create a new virtual device. You'll select the game application that you want to run. You check the checkboxes. You open up QuickTime. You set up a new screen recording. I showed you this where you click the little arrow and you want to set up to Loopback so that you can record inside of QuickTime. At that point, you should see meters. And you can hit record. Depends on if you have like two screens set up. If you're just recording on your one screen, you can either click and drag just a portion of your screen if it's in a window, or you can just click and it will record the entire screen. Depends on how you have it set up. The only thing to watch out for is most of everybody's computers now have Retina displays, and that's like a really super high resolution. And if you do the entire full screen, it might just slow everything down trying to capture all that stuff. It's just might be something to watch out for. I got a couple more slides on that. So the best thing to do is run it in a window and just kind of highlight over the window so that it only captures. You don't capture all of your messy desktop and all this extra stuff. You just capture exactly what you want. So it starts the screen capture. You can run like I said, you can run it in a window. If you click this little checkbox, it says it's in a window. If you unclick this checkbox, it says it's not in a window. More than likely, you've played the game up to this point. You probably know how best it is to run. You've probably already set all this stuff, if you even had to mess with it at all. So more than likely, it's just fine. But if things start acting screwy while trying to do the recording, some of these settings can help. So you hit record when you're ready to go, and you start recording and demonstrating the game. The actual content of the video, I leave that very much up to you. It's your demo video. It's what you want to show off and how you want to show it off. What I'm most concerned with, most focused on, is the process. The fact that you have the game, you have the music and sound effects working in the game. That's a huge portion of the project that you're now demonstrating. And you also have QuickTime, and you've got Loopback or something installed. I guess I should also point out, if you already have and you use something like Soundflower or Audio Hijack, those things are identical to Loopback, or at least in our function, for what we need. And so you can use those pieces of software, as long as it doesn't watermark it or do anything weird with the video or audio. If you already have it set up in a certain way, you can use that. But once you've captured this video, you show that you have all of the sound effects and music working in the game, and you can do a video capture. You have the game playing back. You're using QuickTime and something like Loopback to capture the audio. And so if later on you have a different project or different sounds, you want to redo this one, you can always just create new video captures to show the work that you've done. Demonstrate all the music and sound design. The other thing to point out is I do not count every single sound effect, meaning that I don't track that you have triggered every single sound effect in every piece of music, because I know that a lot of it, or some of it, is left up to chance. You can't always trigger every single music file because it's random. So you're going to get 3 intros, 3 main loops, and only 2 of the endings will play within about 2 minutes long. We suggest that the videos be around 1 minute to 2 minutes long, which is right here. Oops. Right. Oh, there it is. Video capture should be no longer than 2 minutes. So again, the content is up to you. How you demonstrate it is up to you. I would suggest a big one is don't play the game like you're trying to win the game. Don't just do the video capture just to show off how good you are at playing the game. It's about showing off all of the sounds. One common thing that I'll see especially with 2D platformer, is I'll hear the intro and then they'll start playing the game, and for a minute or two I'll just see them play the game, and they'll never die, or they'll just die once at the end and stop the video, and that means I only saw 1 intro and 1 ending. You created 4 other files and never showed anybody. So die a couple of times, jump off the edge, trigger some of those ending cues, try to trigger as many of the sound effects as possible, and just show it off in its best light overall. Then you stop the screen recording. You save the screen recording, name it your last name, your first name, GCP Week4 2D platformer, whatever or Angry Bots. Do not name it last name, first name. Your name isn't last name, first name. You have a last name, you have a first name. Please, it happens every month. Somebody at some point names something last name, first name. So just watch out for that. And then please, please, please check your screen recording. Watch the video after it's done. This happens, most people do this, no problem, but for some reason, I will always, every month, I'll get a series of videos that either the audio is just missing, or they used the internal microphone on their computer. It played out of their computer speakers and then back into the internal microphone. And if it didn't feed back, then it sounds horrible. It just sounds really thin, and you hear them in the background, like breathing and clicking on their keyboard, and it's really kind of weird. And you hear their dog barking in the background and their family running around or whatever it is. So just watch out for that. Double check the video. Make sure it has the correct content of it. It has the correct thing that you captured. The other thing is don't hit record and record it for 2 minutes the first time, because there's no telling if you got it right the first time. So just hit record for a few seconds, and then stop it and check the recording and make sure you're actually capturing the thing you think you're recording. So you don't have to do it over and over again and waste any time. A couple optional tips. Clear off the desktop. If you are capturing any aspect of the desktop, it's probably best to just make it as clear as possible. I know a lot of folks, we have audio directors and people in different game teams come and talk to our Full Sail student, or come talk to our students, and they'll say often, if we see screenshots or things and it just looks like you have a messy desktop and you posted up a video and it just looks like things are all over the place, it's not probably going to help your cause overall, because a lot of people don't want to work with that. You can either do a full screen or a high resolution recording. You can do a low resolution recording. If more than likely the video capture is just going to work just fine. Every once in a while, depending on people's computers and whatever they're running or how they have it set up, this might start making your computer chug a little bit, because you got to play the game and do a video capture at the same time. If that is the case, then as long as the audio doesn't stutter or doesn't drop out, if the video kind of gets slow or choppy, that's fine. For the purposes of the video, for the grade and for the assignment, that's fine. Obviously, you want to make as a high quality video as possible. I wouldn't really even consider just focusing on the fact that it's an assignment. Create a proper and a demo video that you can use beyond the class. So if need be, try shrinking down the resolution of the game. Maybe even try shrinking down the resolution of your monitor and your screen. That might help create smoother videos overall. Once you have done the video for both Angry Bots and 2D Platformer, you're going to post them up on YouTube. Just to put them up there, you can put it just so that I can view it. You don't have to make it completely public, but don't make it private. Make sure that you post it up and you can share the link and have everybody reference it. So the assignment of the video capture is really getting everything set up. Once it's working, then it's just playing the game and just showing off how your music and sound effects sound in the game. All right, so that is your final video capture. And to then show it off, or then to kind of deliver the final version of everything back here on FSO. The kind of big assignment for this week is your final project delivery. And this is going to be basically, it's a 10-question test, but it's not like a test that you study for because you have all the answers. It's just really a summary of your composition. So it's broken down into two halves. 5 of the questions are for 2D Platformer, 5 of the questions for Angry Bots. They're very similar to each other. The first one is 2D Platformer video capture. Provide the YouTube link to your 2D Platformer game capture video. So you just did the video capture, you uploaded it to YouTube, now post the YouTube link here. Make sure that it works. You can always go into incognito mode to check links. That's how I do a lot of my stuff with YouTube and Google, since I have like a personal login for YouTube and Google, but whenever I want to do any Full Sail stuff, you just go into incognito mode and it forgets who you are, and then you can log in as whatever you want. So if you just double check all the links that you're going to send me, make sure that they work. You can use incognito mode to do that, or send them to somebody else, and then that's how I will be able to check it also. So give me a YouTube link. This is actually quite important. A missing YouTube link or a missing audio track in a video renders the submission ungradable. If I can't hear it, if I can't hear your music and your sound effects, or the video doesn't work, or the link doesn't work, I can't grade the rest of the assignment. So make sure the video is there and working. Then you'll send me a screenshot of your DAW session. You will, this is the 2D platformer instrumentation. List the instruments that you used in the intros, main loop, and ending cues. Name any synths or sample library sources for all the tracks. So you will tell me what instruments you used. Tell me in the intros, the main loops, and the endings, which synths, which drums. Don't just tell me I used a piano and I used a banjo and an organ and a synthesizer. Tell me which presets, which sample libraries, which synthesizers you used, which presets you used, so that the idea is if somebody else had to recreate this session, they knew what instruments. They could go load up those, assuming that they had the same instrumentation that you did. Somebody could kind of recreate all of this stuff if necessary. Next, 2D platformer transitions. You will take screenshots of your intros, your main loops, and your endings, and then line them up in a particular way. You are going to take your intro 1 and connect it to main loop 2, and then connect it to ending 3. And then take intro 2 and connect it to main loop 3, and then go to ending 1. And then take intro 3 and go to main loop 1, and go to ending 2. I guess I could just read it up here. Basically, it's taking all of your tracks and rearranging them into different orders, taking a screenshot of it, and then answering a few questions, like describe what you listen to each track. How does the music transition from one cue to the next? Describe what you hear. Does the intensity of the music build with the intro cue? Are the same instruments heard from the intros through the main loops and the endings? Are there any hiccups or pops as the music shifts from one music cue to the next? So these are just basic overview. How well did it work? Did it sound as you expected? Just kind of give me insight into the final product. Then you will create a screenshot of your final mix. Give me a peak level and an RMS level. Use the level meter plugin found in Logic, just so I can get an overview of your levels. AngryBots section is very much very similar. AngryBots video capture. Provide the YouTube link for that. Give me a screenshot of your AngryBots session. And list the instrumentation used in your ambient, buzzer action, mech action, and spider action cues. Then you'll take your 4 files, line them all up together, ambient, buzzer action, mech action, spider action, and then basically comment the same way. How did it work? Listen to your cues playing back together. Describe what you hear. How well did the cues play back? Are there any noticeable issues? Do the cues start and end at the same time? Are there any rhythms that clash? Do the melodies or harmonies clash? Just to get an overview of how well the main portion of the composition worked. Give me a summary with a screenshot of your AngryBots mix. So really, it's just kind of like a post-mortem overview, summary, summation of how well everything worked in the final projects. So that is the direction we are headed in this last week. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to stick around here for a few minutes if you have any questions. But again, this is the last week. Let me know if you are having any challenges or anything that you need to discuss in the final part of the week. But we have one more class on Thursday. We can listen to or discuss or anything that you need, or take a look at your final video. But other than that, let's end it there. Thank you very much, and I'll see you again on Thursday.